Good morning, guys. Today's Friday, April 3rd. Wow, April 3rd already. And today I have a short review video for you about inequalities, the basics, and particularly identifying solutions. Right before school was out, we had learned about the inequality symbols and how to identify a solution using those symbols. And you guys had taken a quick check with 4 questions that is in my gradebook. So I want to offer you the opportunity to pip that quick check if your grade was not what you wanted. And hopefully this little explanation video will help you to understand what was being asked so that on the pip you can be more successful. So let's talk about the inequality symbols. They are less than, or equal to, greater than, and greater than or equal to. It's really important that you guys be able to look at a symbol and know which symbol it is. If I give you an inequality that just says X and then has this symbol and then 3, you need to know that that's the less than symbol, so that if I ask you, excuse me, if I say here are some numbers, which number could X be? You need to know that this is less than, so that you know that you have to pick this number, okay? So it's really important that you can tell which sign is which. There are a couple ways to do that. First of all, the elementary school way is to think about your symbols as being like a Pac-Man or an alligator that eats the bigger number. All right, and I confess that that's how I learned it at first too. So if I look at these, I know that the open side of the sign means that number is bigger. So this one would mean that the 4 has to be bigger than X. This one, since the open side is next to the X, means that the X has to be bigger than 4. So even if I don't know the exact symbol, I know which number has to be bigger based on that. Another way to remember it is to think about a number line. When we have a number line, all the greater numbers are to the right. And if you look at the arrow at the end of the number line, that is the greater than symbol. On the number line, all the lesser numbers are to the left. And if you look at the arrowhead at the end of the number line, that symbol is the less than symbol. So there's a couple ways to remember it, okay? So you have to be able to know, because if I put this inequality, you should know that this is y is greater than 4, all right? It's very possible you could get, at some time in the future, you are going to do inequalities in algebra next year. You may get a multiple choice question where you have to identify, okay, is it A or is it B? Is that greater than or less than? You'll also get questions where you just have to choose the number that can go where the variable is, and you have to know if this is asking for greater than or less than, all right? So it's important to know those symbols, all right? The next thing we need to talk about is solutions. When I talk about a solution, if I have, for example, X is greater than 2, if I say what could be a solution to this inequality? Solution basically just means what could X be? Any number that X could be, or Y, or Z, or D, whatever the variable is. Any number that can be substituted for the variable. And by the way, make a true statement, okay? So for example, if I have x is greater than 2, possible solutions for x, there are infinite solutions, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. Any fraction that's larger than 2, 20 divided by 4, because that's really equal to 5. 100 divided by 10, because that's really equal to 10. 3 and 1/2. 4 and 2/3. Any decimal that's greater than 2, 2.1. 6.8, 9.72, pi, because 3.14 is greater than 2. There are always infinite numbers of solutions for inequalities, but all of these numbers could be substituted right here for x, and this would be a true statement because they're all greater than 2. 1 is not a solution. 0 is not a solution. -5, -2, any negative, not a solution, because those numbers are not greater than 2. So solutions is just asking you what number could be plugged in for the variable, and it would be a true statement, okay? So I'm going to give you some examples, and we'll see how you do. All right, I want you to think for a second about what that symbol is. If you picked less than, you are correct. Take a look at that symbol. If you picked greater than, you are correct. All right, so you're going to see, if you decide to do the PIP, you're going to see some multiple choice questions that ask you basically for solutions. So let's take a look at, let me do some examples here. How about if I have this inequality? All right, pause for a second and think about that and choose your answer. All right, so hopefully you realize that this is the less than symbol. D is less than 7. 6 has to be the right answer. Let's try another one. All right, think for a second about what answer you would pick. All right, this says that t is greater than -4, and hopefully you realize that -3 is actually greater than -4. Remember that on the number line, the negatives go backwards, and all the graters are always over here. So if I'm going to talk about -4, -6, -8, and -10 are all down here. They are actually less. -3 is the only one that's greater, so be careful about negatives. Let's try one where we turn it around and put the number first. All right, take a look at this one. Think about what you think your answer will be. Okay, so this says that 5 is greater than x. Remember again, if the open side is to the bigger number, so that means 5 has to be larger than x. That means x could only be 2. Let's take a look at another one. All right, in this situation, you've got a fraction. Pause the video for a second and take a minute to figure it out. All right, now in this case, if you're not very good with fractions, if you can't look at them and tell which ones are bigger and which ones are smaller, the best thing I would do is change these all to decimals. So if you change 1/2 to a decimal, that's really t is less than or equal to 0.5. Well, 1/4 is 0.25, 2/3 is 0.6 repeating, 3/4 is 0.75, and 5/6 is 0.83 repeating, I think. I'm pretty sure. So if t is going to be less than 0.5, That means here 1/4 is your answer. Sometimes you may be asked to tell the number that is not a solution. All right, let's look at this one. All right, pause the video for a second and figure out this one. All right, so the first thing we have to do is read our inequality, and it says that x is greater than or equal to 4, greater. So we have to choose the number that's greater than 4. Well, I've got one whole number and the other numbers are in not in whole number form. I could keep 12. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Pi is 3.14, and 8.3 is just 8.3. So which one is not a solution? So which one is not greater than 4? 12 is greater than 4, so that's not it. 5 is greater than 4, so that's not it. 8.3 is greater than 4, so that's not it. 3.14 would be your answer. So you have to read carefully to see if they're giving you a not solution, okay? And then let me show you one other type of problem that you might get. All right, this is a pretty easy one that uses whole numbers, but we have here 2 is less than x right here, and then we have another inequality, x is less than 9. So what they're telling you is that the answer, the number that x could be, has to be in between 2 and 9. It has to be somewhere in this area. X can be any place that is greater than 2 but less than 9, okay? This is called a compound inequality. And it's just sort of two inequalities at once. If you just think to yourself about whatever x is has to be in between these two numbers, okay? So for example, if we're going to use that example, any number that's between 2 and 9 could be an answer. 2.1, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8.9, pi, 12 over 3 because that's equal to 4, 6.21. Okay, there are lots of, here's one, the square root of 49. That's a good one because that's equal to 7. So any number that's in between 2 and 9 would be a solution, okay? It might be a little bit tougher if you see one that's got a fraction, but really it's not that big of a deal. How about this? We have a fraction and a percent. I would just change these to decimals. 1/3, I would make 0.3 repeating. And 78%, I think, remember in Desmos, if you want to change this to a decimal, percent means out of 100. So you would just divide it by 100 and it gives you 0.78. If you remember just moving the decimal, you put it at the back and you move it up 2 spaces. That only works if there's no decimal. If there is a decimal, and I'm just getting off topic a little bit, if there already is a decimal, you start where it is and you back it up 2 places, which means for this one you'd have to add a 0 placeholder. I don't think you're going to see that on your pips, so don't worry about that, but that was just a little reminder. Divide by 100 to change into a decimal, okay? Then, once you have this, you can look at your answer choices. Let's say we have 1/4. Let's say we have 1/2. Let's say we have pi. And let's say we have 1. I would just change all these to decimals also. 1/4, 0.25. 1/2, 0.5. Pi, just use 3.14. 1 would be 1.0. And then which one of these is in between 0.3 repeating and 0.78? Well, that would be this one right here, 0.5. All right. So if you see a problem that has multiple representations, fractions, decimals, percent, square roots, whatever, change everything to a decimal first and be real careful doing that. and then you can choose your numbers, okay? So I hope that this quick review helped you understand greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, greater than or equal to, what a solution is, and how to determine if a number is a solution. Please feel free to email me with any questions before you decide to take the PIP on this. All right, bye guys.